Hi, this is Jack Stanley, and I wanted to talk about something I did around 2005, I believe, a number of years ago. But I was working with the museum at the time and dealing with Thomas Edison and the like. And I was approached through an intermediary, which was someone who had contact with the commander of the Space Shuttle, whose name was Commander Polanski. And I was offered the opportunity to send something into space that had been part of what was Thomas Edison. And so I gave that a lot of thought, trying to figure out what would one send into space to represent one of the greatest inventors in history. And in my thoughts and thinking about this, because I had about a month or two to think about it, and I kept going back, and I thought about the fact that organized research had been invented by Thomas Edison, and that one of his greatest pieces of equipment would be a pencil. And so I decided that that would be the perfect thing to send on a space shuttle into space, one of Edison's pencils. Because what was it in space? It was the most modern and advanced organized research laboratory in the world. And so from the beginnings of organized research to the present day, I thought it was a perfect thing. I went through a lot of channels and I had to talk to a lot of people, and eventually, working with NASA, sent the pencil to them. And that was all well and good. About a month later, out of the blue, I get a phone call from NASA. And they said, "We regret to inform you, but we do not send organic materials into space." And I said, "Organic?" And they said, "A pencil. It's organic. It's wood. You have to come up with something else, and you have 1 day to come up with an answer and to send it to us." And so I'm frantically running around trying to think about what to do. It's an interesting thing after doing research and figuring everything you're going to do, and then told you I have 1 day to think of something else. And so I sat there and tore myself to pieces thinking what would make sense to honor Edison or invention or innovation. And I finally came up with an idea after racking my brain for a couple hours. I said, who was the first president to fly? And that was Theodore Roosevelt. And so I sat there and said, why not send a recording made by Thomas Edison's company of Theodore Roosevelt into space? And therefore, not only will be the first to fly in a plane, but also symbolically, he will be the first president to fly in space. And so, working with a number of individuals who were helping me, we packaged everything and sent it to NASA. I was sent acknowledgement that it had been received and that it would be going up in the next shuttle flight. Well, we were all watching, and it was an exciting thing because, well, for me, it was exciting. I had never sent something into space before, and my imagination was going wild thinking of that recording floating in weightlessness. And so, when the time came, we all watched as the shuttle took off. And it was in space. And for about 8 days it traveled around. And then they came down. And within a few weeks of that return, I got a call from several people. First off, I got a call from NASA. And then I got a call from Commander Polanski saying that when he would be available. And I wanted to make a wax cylinder recording of him, similar to what had been made of Theodore Roosevelt. And the date was set, the press was there, people were there. And we got together and we had the formal ceremony in which he presented a wonderful plaque with all the information about the flight. And then he handed me the cylinder that had flown in space. A wonderful treasure. And as this program went on, he looked at me and said, "Jack, I have a little confession to make, a little secret." I said, "What?" He said, "I took the pencil with me." And he reached in his pocket and pulled out the pencil. And so Edison's pencil that had been rejected by NASA went to space. And so it was a fantastic moment for me to have been able to take history and share it with NASA, but also to take history, take Theodore Roosevelt, a president, our 26th president, send them to space, and make history. It was fantastic. And so all these years later now, we're working on many years after, there is no shuttle program anymore. But I always look back when I think of the shuttle to that wonderful moment when I was able to send something into space. And that Commander Polanski went above and beyond the call of duty and took the pencil along. Thank you for that. And I'm so glad that today people can see that cylinder and that pencil, hopefully on display. And hopefully 100 years from now, they will see the recording of Theodore Roosevelt that traveled into space.